we've talked about Chappell Roan a couple of times and her meteoric rise to fame in the music industry. Do not ask who she is. You will get banned. I'm just kidding. But Chappell Roan recently did an interview with Rolling Stone, and in that interview, they asked her about her own political stances. And she is far more outspoken than the likes of a Taylor Swift about her political thoughts. And she even noted that she was invited to perform at the White House earlier this year.
Yeah.
She, at the time, publicly made a statement saying she was boycotting it. She was not going to take them up on the invite because of Biden's disappointing stance on Palestine. She got into that more in this interview and revealed new details. But here is an interesting part of it, given Taylor Swift's continued friendship with outspoken Trump supporter Brittany Mahomes. Chappell Roan revealed to Rolling Stone that she has no problem with having Republican friends and relatives. Roan carries more empathy for her conservative relatives and friends back home than people on the coast sometimes understand.
I like how they're talking about them like they're terminally ill.
Or like they're just not the same species as us.
That's an othering of a different sort.
Yes. Quote, I have family that are very Republican and they love me and I love them. It's so hard for kids who grew up on the coast to understand why maybe I can understand. And I understand all of it that was in me came from fear because I just didn't know. So she's, told people that she's from the Midwest. She's from Trump country. She grew up in a trailer park, etc. It was in the name of her debut album that she's a Midwest princess. So she's saying people from the coast just don't understand what it's like to not have to cut off your family members for supporting a Republican candidate, which I hope would be relatable to anyone without brainworms, but apparently not, because some of her own fans were pissed off at her saying this. Because they expect her to cut them off.
It's become completely normalized to disagree with a family member and then just for no reason whatsoever just cut them out of their lives. That's because people are terminally online and they don't appreciate what is actually of value anymore, which is those tangible things that you have that keep you tethered to the world, that have nothing to do with the phone or it's really sad that you live in a world where people that you'll never meet in the real world, who don't actually care about you, who don't actually like you, they like you because you see the world the same as them, how they hold more value to people than the ones who will love you despite whatever your political or ideological beliefs are.
Yeah, I mean, the Twitter activists are chronically online. They don't have jobs. Their only hobby is harassing other people for being problematic and not sufficiently being, acceptably liberal. And now Taylor Swift has been a victim of that. Chappell Roan has been a victim of that. Plenty of people have. I mean, without spoiling anything specifically, there was somebody featured in the Am I Racist doc who talked about how she has cut off her entire family for being quote unquote racist. Thank you. Now, her definition of racist, I have no idea what it is, but it's probably not reasonable, right? She admittedly said, I cut off basically my entire family because they're racist. Because your Republican uncle made a joke about Mexicans or something one time, and you just decided to oh no,
it's gonna do that for some reason. It's reset.
Now we're paranoid.
We're good.
Okay, we're good. But these people are real.
Yeah.
And
I know plenty of people like this who did this with their family members.
People who cut off contact with you also.
Yeah, there's a strong correlation between this stuff happening and people using excessive therapy speak or speaking in heavy buzzwords that come from consistent online use. You're not the bad guy for being willing to be friends with people who see the world differently than you. I would argue that the best thing you can do is not talk about these things with them at all. I understand that the big notion is today, it's one of the reasons everything is so bad is because we were taught when we were young to not talk about religion or politics because
that's just polite.
Because it's polite. I would argue that that was the right thing to do. I don't think that you can change human nature, and these topics are unbelievably difficult to broach. And
yes.
I get the inclination. The inclination is that, yes, in a perfect world, if you're dealing with people who have a rational brain, who haven't been damaged by too much time online, and who are willing to see things from an opposite point of view, you can have a spirited debate with them. Right? But we don't live in the world anymore where that happens once every couple of months at some family dinner. What happens is it happens, and then you go home and you have a bunch of people online who further denigrate whatever was said and say, oh, it's not just that your uncle disagrees with you. It's not just that your Republican uncle disagrees with you. It's that he's evil. Right? I don't think that
he should be in a gulag. Because
I don't think the average person can go about having these discussions if they care heavily about it.
Well, the problem is that back when that was still a form of social etiquette to not talk about politics around the dinner table
or religion.
Whatever. That was a part of social etiquette actually at a time when we had far more common ground on political and religious issues, and we had more homogeneity in that regard. So weirdly enough, as people have gotten more and more diverse and divided in their political views and their religious views, the more and more it needs to be brought up, or like people see more of a need to bring it up.
It's funny because like it was the uniparty before. If only if they only knew.
If they only knew how much they had in common at the time, right? But the problem is it's never a two-way street, right? I wouldn't call myself a single issue voter, but if there were a single issue that I voted on, it would be pro-life. Like, I've always been pro-life my entire life to the extremes.
You were born.
Absolutely pro-life. Like, I was born that way. I might as well have been born pro-life. And it is the most important issue to me. Funnily enough, abortion is the most important issue to most women voters, as we can see. But I would never cut off a friend for being pro-choice. I would never do that. I would never write someone off as a potential friend for being pro-choice. But it's never a two-way street, because if they found out my views on abortion, on the other hand, they would write me off as a person and never try to get to know anything else about me because of that single issue that we disagree on. It's never a two-way street, and that's why I don't think I have pro-choice friends, because they are not willing to bridge that gap. I would totally, like, I don't care. Like, we can talk about it or we cannot talk about it. That's fine either way.
Me and you talk about these types of things all the time, and we don't necessarily always agree, but we come from them from at least an understanding that there's at least a rationality behind whatever your argument is on whatever point of discussion.
Yeah, but there's just no benefit of the doubt for the other side.
And it also makes it harder to then even broach the subject if you think, it's kind of like when we were talking about trigger warnings, and they're saying, like, if somebody tells you it's coming, then they're spending the whole time waiting for it to happen. Now, if you know that certain people are quick to anger when disagreed with about specific topics, you just don't even bother going there. The healthiest relationship is when you trust someone enough to be able to broach the subject knowing that nothing catastrophic is going to come from it on their end.
Right, yeah. In another part of this interview with Rolling Stone, they asked Chappell Roan about her invite to perform at the White House. And she told people that she didn't want them presuming she supports Donald Trump after she spoke out against the Biden administration. Quote, "It's not so black and white that you hate one and you like the other. I'm not going to go to the White House because I'm not going to be a monkey for pride." So she assumes she was invited to the White House because she is a lesbian, and therefore she is going to represent the LGBT community during Pride Month. That's why she was invited. But she declined because she was not happy with the Biden administration's actions in regard to Israel and Palestine. And she was signaling heavily to the Twitter activists that she was not going to go along with that. And she elaborated that she actually came up with a whole plan of what she was going to do. She was actually going to accept the invite and then protest Biden at the White House. but she didn't end up going through with it. She says she had something way worse planned. She was originally going to say yes, show up to the White House, and then refuse to perform. Instead, protest with poetry. Quote, I had picked out some poems from Palestinian women. I was going to do it as tastefully as I could because all I wanted to do was yell. I had to find something that's tasteful and to the point and meaningful and not make it about me and how I feel. I don't know if I'll ever get that close in direct sight of the president ever in my life. This is my shot. She talked it through with her publicist, who was supportive, shouldn't have been, but made a point.
I bet given her image and what she
would it help her?
Yes, it would absolutely. First of all, it adds a more dynamic nature to her beliefs, which is like you see somebody who looks like her and you just assume that they're just a blanket fall in line leftist who will talk about whatever the Dems want them to talk about. It actually makes her more interesting to do this, even if it's for another leftist cause. It just shows that she's actually less of a hive mind than the average leftist.
Possibly. I mean, there's a bifurcation.
I don't know if that would
where
have been
there are
good for
two
her.
hive minds in the left, where it's know the hive mind of the Democrat establishment and the hive mind of the Twitter activists. Complex.
Maybe my like the way I find it more interesting is unique to me, and that actually wouldn't help her because I'm never going to listen to her music. So
well, the most entertaining outcome is the likeliest, and it didn't happen. So. Yeah. But her publicist gave her one warning: you F with the president and the government, your security is not the same, and neither is your family's.
I don't think she would have struggled for this at all.
That was her excuse.
She falls in line down. She falls in line on every other issue. I don't think it would have been a problem.
Now, on a similar note, Shailene Woodley recently got a huge barrage of hate because she reposted Melania Trump's statement after the assassination attempt made on Donald Trump. She reposted this on her Instagram story, and people just absolutely had a meltdown over it because she is a Hollywood actress and therefore is not allowed to, act like the Trumps are human beings.
They literally migrated over from the Brittany Mahomes post and were like, we're not done yet.
We're not done outraging yet. So she just, with no commentary, just posted the screenshot of Melania Trump's statement, which if you read it, and you should, is completely unobjectionable in every way.
You want to read it, or do you?
Yeah. I already read it back when it happened, but basically it was just like a very apolitical call for peace in the political climate, which anyone should be able to get on board with. But merely because Melania Trump is the one who wrote it and posted it, that means you cannot endorse it, you cannot share it. So Shailene Woodley had to defend her action of reposting
Well, I mean, this is why they're so good. This is why social media has benefited women so much. Not her, but the female hive mind, is that the ability to shun and other someone is greater than it's ever been in human history.
Yeah.
And just the fact that a comment had to be made at all is a problem.
It's crazy that the self-proclaimed witches are doing the witch hunts these days. But Shailene Woodley said, have we forgotten that 2 human lives were taken? 2 people died. That's sad. That's devastating. I could not understand how people were speaking about something with such passion for death. And it's true. If you were looking through comments at the time from leftists, they were celebrating the assassination attempt. And if at the very least, if they weren't celebrating it, they were saying that it was faked. They were saying that it was all a big performance art stunt that they planned ahead of time, which is ridiculous. So completely discrediting the fact that people lost their lives, and that deserves some just basic human reverence.
There was some memes going around yesterday about, because somebody made like a joke about, was it about like people dying at Trump rallies? And people were like, so you can make fun of other people, but the second, dark humor should be evenly applied all around. It depends on how much you actually care about equal representation for all people who have dark humor. Dark humor can be done by leftists too.
One of the replies here says, it's crazy how so many children in these replies think it's a left-wing position to believe that she did anything wrong. And then the first reply I see is STFU, you're so ugly and annoying.
Well, yeah,
they're one of the children.
It's the same children who, whenever somebody makes a borderline brain dead leftist take, they say she ate.
Ugh.
Right?
They all have pre-programmed responses to everything. You cannot live for the approval of schizos.
Thank you, George, in the chat. It was The Onion that did that. It was The Onion that made that post. It was a very dark joke about about what happened at Trump's rally. And I was like, look, we were going to have a whole thing today about a very dark sense of humor, related to other events in American history. I don't have a problem with it. It doesn't bother me. I'm not offended by such things. I understand that those closest to it, like with all forms of dark humor, the closer you get to the actual example, to the actual incident, it becomes more of a problem. Right? But what you're talking about isn't necessarily that. It's just pre-programmed brain dead responses from people who don't look at anyone else outside of their ideological bubble as human.
Yeah. And you posted a segment from Monday, I believe, saying, celebrities are easing up on hating or like dehumanizing Donald Trump.
More like they felt like they didn't need to equivocate or like give some type of disclaimer beforehand, right? So The Rock tells this story about how when he met Donald Trump back in the day, and Donald Trump loved him. And he's like, I want to see the eyebrow, do the eyebrow, and all this stuff. And he didn't feel the need to be like, look, I hate the guy now. But
right.
And the same thing with Elton John, right?
Which is like more important than people might think at first.
I mean, both of those were true. So that, and also Taylor Swift and Brittany Mahomes being willing to take a picture in public together, given that they disagree with things politically. I said, you should not underestimate how important segments like this are to cohesion.
It's an interesting shift that seems to be happening.
I mean, I don't even give them that much credit. I just think that there's no social credit anymore for being that outspoken. Right?
Being outspokenly against him, anti-Trump.
Not in the same way for the celebrities.
Because it's played out.
It doesn't have the same.
And he's not the same Trump he used to be either. He's not 2016 Trump, so he's not as volatile, and that means that there's less of a call to disavow him.
Like Elton John's was like the most tacit. He's like, yeah, I thought it was great. Like he didn't.
So that either means that celebrities are becoming less annoying, which I think is unlikely.
Very unlikely.
Or it means that Donald Trump is becoming less Donald Trump, which is more likely.
I think it's more that like you can only say fascist and Satan so long before it starts to lose meaning.
I think it probably, genuinely, I think that the reason for it is that Donald Trump represents less of a threat to the system than he might have at first, when he first, made his debut as a politician.
Yeah.
Now he's a politician, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.